Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds for sharing and learning from one another. It's a vibe. ReadswithRosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Talo Falava, and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. On today's show, we have a brother who is known as the fast-speaking Samoan. As an MC, he was Bishop from Usual Suspects, a rap group that belonged to a New Zealand hip-hop collective and label called Breakin' Records. He is a brother, an uncle, a father, a coach, and you may have even spotted him on Coconut TV's Rugby Mums. He is a member of the senior leadership team at his school, but most days he is an educator in the classroom, inspiring our young people. Welcome to the show, Sam Tanielu.
Wow, what an introduction, man.
Malona so far, bro. It's good to have you here. I'm excited.
Thanks for having me. Oh man, I'm nervous as.
Don't be nervous.
Yeah, well, I mean, before we start, I just want to say congrats on the podcast so far, man. I've been listening to it the last few weeks. Long time listener, first time caller. So happy to be here, man, and thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. And just congrats on the success so far of the podcast. 100+ subscribers.
Bro, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love and encouragement. I'm still learning. Like every week I'm learning. I'm learning from, audience members and listeners. They're like checking in, like sending messages and stuff. And then of course from the guests. So, it means a lot to me that we finally made this happen, bro.
Right.
How are you? First of all, how are you and your family? Obviously, New Zealand and these lockdowns, especially Auckland. How are you doing? How are you and your family doing during these times?
Yeah, we're doing well. Thanks for asking. It's it's tough. COVID's been full on. We just recently got out of a lockdown here in New Zealand. It sort of felt harder than like last year's lockdown. You sort of get a bit of cabin fever just at home. And we're at home. We got a 2-year-old with some big feelings, which is, it gets difficult at the sometimes, but man, it's just having that time with him was really special for me. Like 8 to 9 weeks at home with him was just so special. And I don't think I would have got that chance to spend that much time with him in like any other circumstances. So like the lockdown is hard, but just such a blessing just to be able to spend time with my family.
Man, bro, that's so cool to hear because, I can imagine, like, obviously as an educator, in the job that you're in, it doesn't stop after 4 o'clock, right? It's ongoing. So it's so nice to hear that you were able to get some downtime and just, have that really precious time with family. So that's super cool. Before we go anywhere, let's just rewind. I really want to ask you just to say a few words. I didn't want to go into your whole full name. I thought I'll just let him say, who are you? Your parents, your cultural background. If you could just say a little bit about that before we get started.
Yeah. I don't know how to follow up from your introduction. That's like the best of myself I could write. But my name's Sam Tanielu. I'm Samoan. My parents, my mom is from Ngeafu and my dad is from Laulii. I grew up in New Zealand. I haven't actually been to Samoa. Fun fact about myself. We grew up here in Grey Lynn. I'm currently at school at the moment just because the Wi-Fi is better here.
The commitment of the man.
Let's do it right. This is Reads with Rosa, got to do it right. We grew up here in Grey Lynn, moved to Avondale when I was about 12, and then we moved to Titirangi, and then currently we're living in Glen Eden, me and my partner and my son. I'm a keen reader. I love reading. I love music. I love sports as well. I love Twitter, as you know. I'm a teacher. So I've been teaching at St. Paul's for about 12 years, almost 12 years now. And as you said, I'm part of the senior leadership team. So I'm assistant headmaster here at the college. And I teach English and media studies. Those are my two subjects.
Bro, man, honestly, I remember when I first reached out to you, I was like, oh, bro, I want to hit up Sam. I'm just going to ask him. I mean, I got nothing to lose, right? I'm just going to ask him. Then I was doing research because I knew you were at St. Paul's, right? I knew you were there, but the shock of my life, I was just like, yo, this guy's the, because it's been ages, right? I was like, Moses. Bro, I was so proud. I was like, yeah,
thank you.
Exciting just to know that you're part of that senior leadership team, and we'll get to your life as an educator and how you're impacting our young people. We'll get to that soon. It's funny that you mentioned Graylin, because recently, I saw those photos that you posted. Yo, that was dope. Like, where did those photos come from that showed you and Kiri? Shout out to
beautiful. Man, a friend of mine, James, tagged me in them on Facebook, and like that's the first time I've ever seen those photos as well. And man, it was just like, it just took me back. I was in a Zoom meeting while I was just checking my Facebook during the Zoom meeting. Don't tell anybody. And I got tagged in them, and then just brought back so many fond memories. And so I sent them to Kiri, my sister, and I sent them to my mom as well. And just talking to my mom about them, and she was just like, yeah, because I didn't remember those photos. That's the first time I seen them. My mom was saying she remembers them, and she was saying, what a sad guy. Like my brother's carrying like all the shopping. This is when we used to live in Graylin and Kirk Street, and we go to Surrey Crescent for like our weekly shop. And she was like, I'm walking around with my packet of biscuits while my brother's like carrying like all the shopping. But those photos are awesome, man. And so that was 1989, and I was 4 years old in those photos. So pretty cool, man. Like,
talk about throwback, hey.
Throwback, just to be part of like that Graylin history,
Like history, bro, man. That was so cool. I was like, wow, what are the chances of that happening, man? That was so dope. Exactly. Let's talk about young Sam. I know you've mentioned you're a reader. Like, when you were at school, like, do you ever tell your students about, when I was at school, like what kind of student were you when you were coming through school? Were you an avid reader back then? Were you a naughty kid? Were you what kind of student were you?
I was always a reader. We were quite lucky. Like, Mum really encouraged us to read when we were young, and obviously we didn't have like any money growing up, but every chance we got to order those books, the book order things in primary, and Mum would always be like, oh yeah, go order yourself like a couple of books or something. And man, it was just Christmas for me, like just getting to like, and I think it was when like what I first started reading. I think it was like Goosebumps or something. Yeah, that's probably the first like chapter books I started reading, and just to be able to order those books was just like magical for me. Like, and then ever since then, like I think I've like fostered a love for reading. And more so like the learning part of it. So all throughout school, I was probably the guy. I see myself in a lot of like my students now, like we just sort of cruise by. Like there's a love of learning there. Like obviously a love of learning, and that's probably my favorite thing about teaching and about education is that I have a real like love of learning, and that's probably comes from reading as well. I read in Kurt Vonnegut, an author I really like, said once that new knowledge is the most valuable commodity in the world. And so like for me, when I read books and I learn new things, it's like that's my commodity, and I get like real excited, and it's just like a magical place for me to go when I read. And so that's carried on throughout like all my years, primary and intermediate and high school as well, and obviously uni. and I also see like similarities with myself and my students is where like there's a love of learning there, but when it comes to like things like assignments and assessment, it's just like this is not really like learning. It's just like, even though it's like showcasing what you've learned, like that part of it gets sort of boring for me, and that's probably why I had to do like took me like 5 years to do a 3-year degree, you know, probably.
I hear you. Hey, there's nothing wrong. Slowly but surely, man.
Yeah, it's just the learning. Right? I love the learning, but
Yeah.
when it came to the assignment stuff, I just got bored. It's like, this is a bit boring, like writing essays and stuff. But
yeah,
the learning was always like, and that came from the reading for sure. And so I'm really grateful that my mom like really encouraged us to read. And you know, I had a teacher in primary as well who was very like special to us, and she'd always take us to like the Greyland Library, like our classes in primary. So we'd walk there as a class and get our books, and now that was always special to me. Like it's like winning the lotto for me, like reading, like getting new books and being able to read and learn new things. So yeah,
because you know, I always see you on like Twitter, like, oh, I've read this, and honestly, I'm like, oh, I better up my game. Come on, man, come on, Rosa, get on with it. It's cool, man. Like honestly, it's so inspiring. Like just to, and I've like seen, and I'm like, I screenshot so I can look up that book. You know, it's so cool to see you sharing that. And because you know, like I feel like unless we share what we're reading, you know, a lot of our people are just, they want to, but it's almost like it's out of my comfort zone. And I feel like if your students know that you have this love for reading, they catch on to that, and then they, you know, hopefully that is something that they can learn to love as well, bro. So that is so cool, man. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like and that's so special to me as well. Like I love, and that's the whole point, is like I share those books because I want other people to like have the same like excitement and like share the same joy for reading that I found in the books and stuff as well. And so exactly the same with my students. Like my year 9s, like during lockdown, and even now, because every sort of Wednesday is our library period. And so during the lockdown, I just got them to like share what they were reading, what they were listening to, movies they were watching, TV series. And so I did the same as well. Like I shared what I was reading. It was really cool just to have that interaction with them during the lockdown too. So yeah, just fostering that love of reading for them. And
and then of course, being a male Pasifika teacher, I mean, even more important, man, even more important. You know, my brother's kids, my nephews, you know, trying to get them into reading, especially our youngest one. You know, recently he sent my brother these messages of, you know, my brother gifted Caleb, you know, Tsama Samoa by Dalia Malay Ulu, and then he sends these text messages like, I've never cried in a book. And it was just like, whoa, you know, like, oh, I think I found my love for reading. I mean, that's so special, you know, to know that at his age, you know, 13 years old, just turned 13, he's learning to love. And he's always been a reader, but I think this is the first time a book has really kind of like, I don't know about resonated, because it's, you know, at his young age, but he's really connected to it, like it's so special.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. Like I just read that book as well. And it's so powerful. Like, you know, the writing is simple and it's direct, but it's like, it's really like emotional, especially as young Pasifika men. And so like that's, you know, after reading your review, I checked it out as well, and a good friend of mine recommended it to me too. And it's just so powerful, that book. And it's the same. Like I see the same with my son. Like my son loves reading. You know, he's 2 years old, and he just loves it, and that's our favorite time, like our special time together. So that's part of our routine. Like we sort of we do a bath and stuff, and then we sit down and read his books. So he's really into a book called The Troll at the moment by Julia Donaldson, and that's his favorite book. And so we have to read, and like that time is really special for me. Like I love that time together, and because we don't really let him watch like TV or like be on his device or anything, and so he's just sort of developed that love for reading, which I just love seeing that, because I've got a love for reading, and then just seeing that passed on to my son is, man, it's awesome. Yeah, it makes me proud.
It's so special, man. You know, do you listen to audiobooks? Just side note, do you listen to audiobooks, or you're not really?
I've started to listen to a few. I think I'm currently listening to George Orwell's 1984 on Spotify. So I've only recently discovered the audiobook. Like it's hard for me because podcasts I can listen to.
Yeah.
But books, just I don't know. It takes. I have to do like I have to be mowing the lawn or like washing the dishes or something to like get in the zone.
Bro, that's the beauty of it, eh? Like, you know, I saw you read, is it Carmelo? Is that how you say it? Anthony?
Yeah.
I saw you read that. I listened to the audiobook, right? And, you know, to be honest, like I'm not a basketball person. I'm a bit of a, you know, jump on the, you know, jump on. Yeah, you know, like
Warriors.
those ones, a bandwagon.
Yeah.
But I
been a Golden State Warriors fan since I was like 10 years old.
So yeah, man, I listened to that and man, it was cool. Like for me, you know, it was only like maybe 2 years ago that I really got into audiobooks. And I don't listen to all audiobooks. Like I'm really someone who listens to memoirs, right? And like you said, that's the beauty of audiobooks. You cleaning, doing washing, anything like that, and it just keeps you busy. So I listened to that and I really liked that. Learned a lot that I didn't know about this person. And I'm currently listening to Will Smith's new book. I just started listening to that yesterday. And
what's that called?
It's just called Will, and it's by Will Smith. And he also reads the audiobook. I think his book dropped maybe 2 days ago. I think I saw. Yeah, so you got to check it out.
Yeah, I told you I'll be taking notes down as well.
But yeah, if you get a chance, you know, I think I would recommend listening to it because you know. You can imagine how he's just he's a great storyteller. So, you know, and I also find
like having him like narrated as well and like read the book.
Awesome. Hard. And I feel like when it's the author narrating the book, it's just that deeper connection, right? It's a whole nother level of, you know, the emotions and the trials and tribulations and the joys that they go through. When it's the author telling it, it's just like, oh, that got me, or oh, I'm so angry, or you know, you just. I know I'm serious about audiobooks. Let me stop.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm definitely gonna check that out too.
You know, when you were growing up, who were some of your role models, whether in school or family, or you know?
Role models, definitely mum. Mum was a big role model for me. You know, just she just worked so hard. Like she just taught me the value of working hard and like just having a good work ethic. And I told her, maybe this was a few years ago. I remember like driving over in the car and I was like, Mum, you know, like you're my hero, Mum. Like, you know, you're like my superhero. And you know, she's like got teary eyed and she started crying and she's like, oh, you know, thanks, son. I was like, nah, honestly, Mum, I mean that. Like you really are like my hero. So definitely, Mum. Yeah, I'd say my sister and my brothers as well. Like they played a big part in like, you know, when I was young and sort of in my formative years and like really malleable. Like my sister and my brothers really like, I guess like influenced me in certain ways, and I really looked up to them. Who else? There's a few teachers who I like really looked up to and I see as role models. My auntie Tupe is one, and the teacher that I mentioned before, who used to take us to the library, Sheena Holding. She was my teacher in primary, and she, like those two, probably like helped me make my decision of becoming a teacher because they're just awesome as people and as teachers as well. Who else? I looked up to a lot of guys in Break and Rick, which I guess we'll probably talk about later, but. A lot of those guys I really looked up to because they were like a lot older than me, and they just gave new perspectives on life and like how to be a man, you know. And so I learned so much from them, and so even now, like they're still my role models. I really look up to a lot of those guys. Who else? That's probably it for now that I can think of off the top of my head. Obviously, my friends as well. Like. I got a really like nice little circle of friends, you know, and most of them are all my cousins anyway. And so like just as a group, we've sort of grown up together, and just seeing them achieve their goals as well, like just sort of pushes me to like, man, I want to exceed as well. Like I want to just do exactly what my potential like allows me to do, and just reach those heights along with them as well. So they, you know, we sort of push each other. You know, the iron sharpens iron thing, you know, so and that's really important, like with a circle of friends, I think. So shout out to those guys, T-Pony.
That is cool, bro. Thank you for sharing. I want to talk about hip hop. I want to talk about your first memory of hearing rap music. First memory of hearing rap music. Like, what was that?
I thought about this because I knew this was coming. This question. Oh. I think it was in primary, and I think it was Felitti from Nisha Mystic.
Oh, yes,
we went to the same primary. We went to Newton Central Primary, and he lived sort of up the road from me. And I remember one day in primary, he came to school, and he was like, out of nowhere, he was just like, 1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg is at Dr. Dre is at the door, and I was just like, bro, what is that, man? he was rapping it for ages, nothing but a G thing. And then like, I sort of caught on to it. I started listening to it as well, and was just like, man, this is actually pretty cool. Like, so this is what rap is like. This is rap. This is hip hop. And then I think obviously my older brothers, because we grew up in Greyland and Kirk Street. It was a 3-bedroom state house, but there was about like 15 people living in the house. Like and so there was lots of different like music influences in the house anyway. Samoan music to range from that to Michael Jackson to all the way to Roxette. All of that stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, my brothers listen to a lot of West Coast influence hip hop, a lot of rap. So I grew up listening to a lot of that. Ice Cube, Tupac, Snoop and Dre, Booyah Tribe. So influenced a lot by West Coast sound, just that G-Funk sound. And then it wasn't until probably 97, 98, I was exposed to like East Coast hip hop, like stuff from New York, and I was just like blown away. Just like the lyricism of everything just sort of changed the game for me. The West Coast hip hop was more sort of laid back, mellow. But when it came to the New York East Coast stuff, was like, man, the lyrics really like resonated with me, and I was just like, man, that's amazing. Like they're doing like they're gymnasts, but like with words, and it just that made me sort of be like, oh shit, man, I could try this. Like I could do this. It'll be fun.
When I've spoken to like other like MCs and stuff, and I always wonder, like, were you, once you caught onto it, like at what point did you start writing things down, or were you just freestyling? Were you in ciphers with your friends? At what point were you writing poetry? Like, were you someone who had a notebook and did that kind of stuff?
Definitely. You can ask a lot of my friends at Max, like, third form, fourth form. I carried around this notebook and I'd write stuff down. I'd write raps in it every day, like, and not even just raps as well. It'll be like awesome quotes I heard, and it just all in this notebook. And like this notebook was really like, I carried it around everywhere. Like even though it got weird, it got muddy, whatever, it was there. It was like pages were ripped, but I'd like still write stuff down. Interesting fact there. Like I only found this out like maybe a few years ago. Like I remember when Mum first came to New Zealand, she would write down song lyrics of like popular songs at the time, and that's pretty much how she like helped herself learn how to speak English, was from writing the lyrics down for the songs. And so like, and then when I heard that, when Mum told me that, I was like, man, that's probably why like I have such a love for like writing and like music and stuff. But I've always loved writing. Like I've just loved like how words like work and how they fit together and how they sound together. So yeah, I'm basically like a nerd, man. Like I love it. But yeah,
do you go through like rap songs and like you're just like, listening to all the metaphors and that kind of stuff, and you're just trying to piece it all together?
For sure. And I think it started like probably when the internet came out, like, and then people were like, I remember there was a guy at my school, a friend of mine, who was actually selling like lyrics for Bone Thugs songs. Selling them. I was like, bro, come on, man. This was back then, like, he was like $2 for a song, and then I'll go home to my computer because I got the internet at home, and I'll print off his lyrics for you, and then he'll bring it the next day, and he had this whole like clear file folder full of like lyrics, Bone Thug songs. And
Oh
that was
man.
the best. And so like just learning like especially Bone Thug songs because just like how they structure their songs and like
Mm.
obviously you know the humana humana humana
Yeah.
humana humana, but like actually like reading what they're saying is like that was pretty cool. I remember my cousin, shout out Jerome, we I remember he got so angry because I wouldn't give him the lyrics to Bone Thugs if I could teach the world. Like he got so mad. Oh, sorry, Jerome. Sorry, Rome's. But yeah, he got so mad when I wouldn't give him those lyrics, man. I remember that. That was funny as.
Man, so when you think about those early days in hip hop, were you into other elements? Like were you, you were like writing raps and were you like breakdancing? Were you like with your spray can at the railway station? Wink wink. I mean, do you know what, were you into other elements of the culture or were you, man? Yeah.
Hey, remember our safe thing is like we blink twice and then that's how
Oh
we.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think '99, like that was when everybody was into breakdancing in Auckland, you know, like, and I at the time we were living in Avondale, and I grew up in Avondale, and so they were awesome like breakdancing crews. They were like the Wicked Wizards from Avondale, and one of my good friends Fatul was living in Avondale, and I used to hang out at his house all the time, and so he because he was friends with them. And so we'd like get out the cardboard and we'd try doing all these moves. Like I wasn't really like flexible like that, but you know, I still try to give it a go because it was hip hop, you know. And I was like,
right.
I felt like a sense of belonging with like hip hop culture. It just resonated so much with me. But yeah, I definitely love the rapping. I tried the breakdancing, and as you said, I was really into tagging at the time because it's like I said with like with the words, like man, there was this guy at school who man, he had the best tagging style. So I was friends with him and I like trying to copy his stuff. And then I wish I was a tagger, but I was terrible.
It's so funny that you mentioned that.
I couldn't DJ. Like even now because I don't even have access to like DJ gear or anything, but I call myself like a curator of good music. So
I like that.
But I can't DJ because I don't have any gear. So.
Man, did you ever dabble in making beats? We'll get. I'll talk a little bit about your rapping later, but did you ever like dabble in like making beats and things like that? Did you like you'd hear a beat and just start rapping and just start spitting rhymes? Like what was that?
Yeah, I wish I could make beats like Saya and Rizvan, who I rap with in Usual Suspects. They were like so amazing on Fruity Loops. I mean, they tried to teach me, but I was just like, oh man, I'm so like unbearable. But for me, like I always have to have like a creative outlet for me. And so even if it's like on my phone, I just mess around with like GarageBand or there's another drum pad app that I just play on and I just make beats on there. But it's not like I'm not going to show anybody them, you know. But I just like having that, being able to be creative and just like I think this sounds good, so I'll just make it. But I'm not going to sell it for money or anything. So no one's going to want to hit me up for beats. So
why not, man? You never know. Man, let's talk about Usual Suspects. Like, how did you meet the other guys? Like, how did you all come together? Like, at what point did you go from I'm at school, I'm writing raps in my notebook to we're actually gonna form a group? Like, did you meet those guys through school or?
Yeah, so like I said, like '99, I really started like writing my own raps, and just like I remember a good friend of mine telling me like, bro, this is like too much because I listened to a lot of Cannabis in like 98, 99, and Cannabis is all like the lyrical miracle, like dictionary words. So it's too much. But I actually like really wanted to rap. Like that was my dream. I was like, man, I want to be a rapper. Like this is what I want to do. And it's because I remember a girl from church. She gave me like a box of Source magazines.
Oh, I used to buy them all the time, man.
Same. And, like, what she gave me, man, those were like I like studied those like religiously, like, and I became like a hip hop nerd. Like I just loved the culture so much. and I just studied those things. I read it from cover to cover, like, you know, I unsigned hype column, the who got 5 mics for the album, and I love those things. And then I would buy it. So I really like took it seriously. Like I really wanted to do this. Like this was my dream. You know, a lot of people like my friends, they wanted to be like NRL players, All Blacks. Yeah. Man, I wanted to be a rapper. Like I didn't care about like the sports and stuff. I just wanted to rap. Yeah. And so I kept writing, and then in 2001, I think, I was downloading like a New Zealand hip hop song off Napster. This is when Napster was around. Yeah. I can't remember what the song was, but the guy I was downloading it from, me and him started chatting, and he was saying that, you know, I told him, yeah, man, I'm rapping as well. I'm trying to write. And he's like, yeah, I rap too, and that was Rizvan. That's Quest. Oh, yes. So me and him, we sort of hung out a lot, and we started writing together. And then in 2002 or 2003, we got a chance to, we got asked to record on 833 Records, which is based out in Massey, I think it was. Yeah. And we recorded a song for that. They had a compilation album, and that was like my first time in the studio. It was real cool. It was good fun. And yeah, like from that, I met Rizvan's brother, which is Saya. And so we got a chance. There was a hiphopandz.com was really big in like the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, and that's where like majority of like New Zealand hip hop community was. Everybody was on those like message boards, and so a guy from Breaking Rick, Jared Cyphernetic, he got in touch with Rizvan, and he was like, "Man, you guys want to come and like perform at our show?" And then we recorded our song Profile, and
yeah,
we recorded Profile at his house, I remember, and then we got asked to play. This was our first like gig ever, and so Saya wasn't really part of the group. It was me and Rizvan, and we recorded the Writers Alliance. But then when Saya came on, we were like, yeah, maybe we should change it, like, and we called ourselves the Usual Suspects, and it was sort of a play on just, you know, back before Police 10-7, there was a show called Crime Watch. Oh, you know, and in the 90s, and it was the same setup, you know, when they talked about they were looking for these like usual suspects, and it was always like, you know, Māori or Pacific Islander, strong to medium to strong build, you know, and so we wanted to play on that, like, okay, like let's be the usual suspects, and at the time we were the only like brown guys on Breaking Rick as well, so it just sort of fit well. We were the usual suspects, and so we got to perform our first show at a place called the Temple at the top of Queen Street, and that was like the first sort of Breaking Rick showcase. So it was like us when David Dallas was still in Frontline, or he was still called Consai at the time.
Yes.
Dirtbag District, which is Louis Nux and Fact from New Plymouth, and then obviously Cyphernetic and Tourette's, and so that's pretty much our like how we started, and we got onto Breaking Rick. So thank you to Napster, like you know, Napster and LimeWire. Shout out to those places. Like, you know, we had to like spend 2 hours downloading one song, and you didn't even know if it was the right song that you were downloading.
Man, that's crack up. You know, so your MC name Bishop, like how did you come up with that? Is it the chess piece? Is it like related to the clergy? I didn't know. Like, I was like, I gotta Google this. What is Bishop related to? Like, I mean, how did you come up with that name?
Well, I do teach in a Catholic school now, so Bishop was from so he was Tupac's character in Juice, and so very like smart, very intellectual guy, but also if you know the movie, like Bishop is he's unhinged, like, you know. So that was one part of it, and also one of my favorite characters from X-Men his name was Bishop, and he's like a time traveler, and he's got this cool like scar on his face, and so both of those things sort of married up, and I was just like, man, Bishop's a cool name. And a funny story on that as well. Like, I remember there was a guy from I think from St. Paul's at the time. Like I was still at Max, and there was a guy from St. Paul's, and he was rapping under the name Bishop as well. And this is when like MSN chat was a big thing, and I remember his whole family like his, I think it was like sister and older sister, or they emailed me. They're like, "Oh, you can't use the name Bishop. Like that's my brother. That's my brother's like rap name." And I was just like, "Oh, come on, man." And then, there's a funny story, but I can't remember what happened. I think I wrote like a diss track or something. I can't remember.
I was gonna say, so when did you drop the diss track?
I think I did. I actually did. I recorded it at my cousin's house on like his PC with like the computer mic. And that was probably my first recording, and I loved it. This try it was over 50 cents. I forgot what the song was called. One of his instrumentals, but yeah, it was good.
Oh, bro, that is crack
We'll
up.
see. We'll see who has the name Bishop.
Bro, can you imagine that beef taking place today in this day and age of social media, bro?
So stupid.
Cancel.
Yeah, exactly, man. So stupid.
Oh man,
you know, you're young. You're like you're fifth form or sixth form.
Oh man, that is crack up. You know, you guys performed on Top of the Pops. Or I even watched it, man. I watched it. Top of the Pops, man. You know, for our listeners and viewers who don't even know what we're talking about, they might think we're talking about some biscuits or something. Tell us about Top of the Pops back in New Zealand those days.
No, that was like it was such a big thing. We'd done Holler Hour on C4. Like, see, even C4 is like such an ancient thing. We performed Profile on there, and then we got an opportunity to play on Top of the Pops, which was like, you know, for those who don't know, it was like a big musical show. Like they did like a countdown, and like they got people to perform. And so that night we got to perform our song Profile, and backstage I also got to meet Scribe for the first time. I think that's the only time I've ever talked to him anyway. But man, it was just like I was starstruck. Like meeting Scribe, I was just like, man, this is Scribe. Like, and this was when Scribe, like Crusader, had just dropped.
Yeah.
And he was such a huge star. And I just meet him, and like he was like, man, you guys are dope, man. I was just like, oh, man, Scribe said I'm dope, man. It's like cool. So yeah, I was really starstruck meeting Scribe, and P Money as well was there, and he performed Not Many on Top of the Pops, I was. But yeah, man, it was so cool. Just being on the stage and like, you know, all the lights and the thing, it was good fun.
You know, so you guys put out an album, just to skip forward, Higher Learning in 2009. How long did it take you guys to put that album together? Was it something that was like a work, you know, a work in progress, you know, in terms of the project? Did it take a few years to kind of get everything together? Yeah.
It was such a long process. Yeah, so our album, Higher Learning, 2009 in December. Because we recorded our first song, Profile, in probably 2003, and it was like, we had a few songs as well that we recorded, and we were like, man, maybe we could like actually like record an album. So that's 2003, and like, you know, our album didn't come out in 2009. So, you know, along those years, we're making songs, and then whatever you hear on that album is like, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for Saya, but for me personally, like listening back to the album, like there's lots of things I'll do differently. Like to me, it kind of feels like there's obviously we had a theme in mind, but it sort of lacks like cohesion for me. I mean, I'm just being critical of my own stuff, but and that's because like a reason for that is because the songs, because as men like me and Saya, obviously we're different from like 2004. Like so much had happened over those years up until like 2009. Like there was so much change in our lives. You know, we're going through graduating uni. Saya had just got married, and like I just went through like a big breakup. And like you can kind of hear that on the album as well. It's like I'm in a different space, Saya's in a different space, and it's like sometimes you can hear on the songs that it kind of lacks cohesion. But yeah, it was like so many songs that didn't make the album as well that probably didn't, like listening to them now, like aged like terribly as well. Like a lot of songs like aged really bad. And definitely like hearing back some of the songs that we left off, I was like, yeah, I'm glad we left it off. But yeah, it was because so much had happened, like for us as people, as men, over those years, and so you can kind of hear that in the music and like how a lot of the songs like just don't really fit with each other. Like thematically, it doesn't really work. But I mean, man, I'm still proud of it, like the album. But there's definitely like a lot of things I do differently. But yeah, it's all those songs were just. And then when it came down to like releasing the album, we sort of had an idea of releasing it like a day, like 13 Days of Christmas style, which was really cool. And it was because 2009 was really like before like social media really like became like what it is now, and so we just sort of missed that point of the social media, like just how social media works like now compared to what it was in 2009. It was so different. The landscape of social media was different. So yeah.
Did you guys call it quits, or is it an extended hiatus? Like, was there ever a point where you guys kind of sat down and talk, because I'm thinking back to how you like earlier, you want to be a rapper. This is what you wanted to do. Was there ever a point where you guys kind of sat down and like going through changes as young men, in your personal lives? Did you have that chat, or do you know what I mean? Like how, because, honestly, even though Usual Suspects, I mean, like my brother and I are huge fans. Like we still jam that. We still like, man, it's like, I didn't know, is that like 50 cents for you guys on Spotify? I don't know. But it's do you know what I mean? Like, man, it just like, man, I can play Put in the Air. I can play Profile. I mean, I know you're talking about the album and being critical of your work and stuff, but man, I still play it and I'm just like, yo, what, these guys were just ahead of their time, like, like Profile and all that. So let me stop. Did you ever have that chat? And
man, thanks for that. Like that means a lot. And yeah, thanks for getting those streams for our songs. Like, I'm able to spend my $1.25. Like,
spend it on your son, not yourself.
Yeah,
Thank you very
exactly.
much.
They're balling out with my $1.25. Yeah, like so after we released, so obviously there was three of us. So it was myself, Saya, and his brother Rizwan. They had a tragic death in their family. Saya and Rizwan, and so Rizwan, his cousins, they were part of a group called the Immigrants, who were with D1 Music at the time. Yes. So Rizwan sort of, had a chat with his cousin, and he was like, "Man, I might just go be a part, like, just sort of be with them and just like be a part of like the Immigrants and D1 Music." So Rizwan kind of left, and for me and Saya, I was like, "Geez, man, like, what should we do? Like, should we keep doing this, or like, we have a few songs, we could probably make an album." And so Saya initially wasn't on board. He was just like, "Man, I reckon you could be like a solo artist, like a good solo artist." I was like, yeah. But like, I'd rather we do it together. Like, we really started, like, we had a few songs already. I was like, man, I reckon we could finish this. And then we really like sort of honed in. We worked on our album together. Really cool process. Like, we, got a manager and everything, and like an agent who was like sort of doing our PR and stuff. And so we decided, man, let's finish this, and we'll see what happens from there. And so after the album, we recorded a few songs that we wanted to do like for another project, and they're still sitting there somewhere. I don't know if you'll get to hear it, but I'll just send it to you.
Yeah,
we're sitting on a few songs, but yeah, again, like, so much just had changed in that time. Like, I started teaching 2010, so it was like the year after like we dropped, and it was just like I just got really into like teaching, and so music became like secondary for me. Like, I was like, man, I love it. Like, I really miss like performing as well. Like, performing is the best part. But yeah, it just became secondary. Like, and Saya just sort of did his own thing. Like, obviously, he still kept making beats. Still definitely like one of my favorite beat makers and producers in New Zealand, like, ever. So talented. So he kept doing his own thing. And we've talked a few times about, man, let's do this and let's get in the studio again. So I don't know, maybe like you said, it's probably an extended hiatus, but who knows? Like again, like we're all in such different spaces now, but the three of us, we're all like, I talked to Rizwan a lot. I talked to him recently. We are just talking about like, the conversations are different now. Like we're talking about family and talking about being dads, and which is, and that's awesome to me. And so I don't know, extended hiatus, maybe, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I was laughing because I went on. Of course, I was doing my research for the say. Like, I'm not coming to this interview not knowing anything. I went to YouTube, and I was like, let's search up usual suspects. And then I came across food for thought. I was laughing my head off. I was like, oh, so this is what these guys did after the album dropped. I was like, oh, okay, the chicken nuggets and the I was like, man.
Terrible.
You guys look like you were having fun.
It was, yeah. That was cool. I think the idea behind those was like, let's just get some promo stuff out, like, and just make it funny. Like initially we had we didn't get around to doing it, but we had a cool idea for making like a little Usual Suspects like mockumentary.
Yeah.
That was about like how as a group we could never make a song that was better than Profile, and it was like showing us like 10 years later from making Profile, and like we're still in like the studio trying to make the same kind of beat. Profile. That was just like we had like heaps of cool ideas about like just promo stuff for the album and for like the next album that we're gonna roll out or whatever. But we never got around to doing it. But those food for thought things was terrible, man.
Do your students know that I'm not gonna say were, because we're just gonna work on extended hiatus, just because I'm a fan. Just putting it out there. But do they know that you're a rapper? I mean,
yeah,
like I mean, you can spit rhymes.
I don't really like I don't tell them like.
Do they Google you? Probably, yeah.
They definitely obviously then everybody knows how to use Google.
Yeah.
And so one of our year 7 teachers has been teaching. He teaches poetry, and he do like they do like identity as their thing, and he always uses fast speaking Samoan. He shows him the video.
Yes.
And it's just like, man, that video is so terrible, but man. So they always use it, and then and I mean the sad guy, he told them that I stole that poem. I think, man, should I clear that up like right now? I feel
clear it up, bro. Put it out there.
Fast Speaking Samoan, I wrote in 2006 or 2007. So I was invited to perform at my friend Dominic Hoey Tourette's. He asked me to read a few poems that his spoken word night he was holding. And so at the time, I was at uni, and it was American poetry paper that I was doing. And we had to do a group project, and our poet that we got given was Anne Waldman. And so she has a poem called Fast Speaking Woman. And because I didn't have anything to read at this spoken word night, I only had like acapellas that I was going to read. But I decided to like, because I was studying Anne Waldman at the time, I was like, man, it'd be cool if I could like recontextualize this poem and like make it Fast Speaking Samoan. And it's about like the journey of a Samoan person coming from the islands, migrating to New Zealand in search of, the land of milk and honey, a better job, a better life. And then, so that's basically how that poem came about. And I wrote that in about 20 minutes. Later on, when I was doing the exam for that same paper, I remember sending a couple of my poems that I've written. Fast Speaking Samoan was one of them, to one of my lecturers. And then a couple, like maybe a year later, so obviously I recorded the video for that. My ex-girlfriend directed that video, by the way, and it was for her digital media project. But yeah, and then a year later, that same lecturer, she came out with her own like poem called Fast Talking PI or something, and it was so bad. And so that's the real story. So I mean, I remember emailing a lot of my lecturers, like, man, what do I do? Like this, like lecturer, like who I like looked up to at the time, really looked up to. She's taking like my poem and she's like,
I know who you're talking about. Let's not say the name, but I know.
Yeah. No, she shall remain nameless. Yeah, so she came out of that, and I was just like, man, this like, I sent her that poem, like that was my poem. But hey, who cares? But yeah, I wanted to clear that up because our year 7 teacher, like, he tells the boys the other story. He said he shows them my video, and then he's like, oh, this is actually where he got it from. So I had to go into the class like, hey. So I had to clear that up for those year 7s, set them straight. But yeah, that's the story behind speaking Sam Tanielu, man.
Man, I'm glad you cleared that up because I was wondering, and it's so funny because I was watching the video, and then I saw there was this like debate in the comments from way back then where someone's like, actually this is the story, and someone else is like, oh no, and I was like, yo, people, so I'm glad you cleared that up because I had I had always wondered. So I'm just glad you cleared that up, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I mean, just compare like my one to hers. Like my one's so much better. Like,
bro,
but yeah, no, I really looked up to her. Like as a, she was my lecturer, and even now when I see like her books in like our library and stuff like that. But oh, well, who cares? It's not like it was my like original poem. Like I recontextualized it from Anne Wardman anyway. So I mean. Yeah, who cares?
Still, man, you just gotta.
Yeah, like that really hurt at the time because I was like, man, I really look up to you as like a speaker lecturer and like someone like really prominent in the university. So that hurt a bit at the time, but yeah, I mean, who cares now? I've gone past it. But I just thought I'd clear that up.
Throwing it out over the balcony after this, right after this.
Keep the straight from my year 7s.
Yeah, boy. Okay, I want to just backtrack a little bit. When you think about breaking records, Rest in Love, Todd Williams, when you think about New Zealand rap during that time, on the come up, what impact, when you look back now, what impact did breaking records have on the New Zealand hip hop scene?
Yeah, like for me, that like the early 2000s is probably like for me, I consider that like the golden era of New Zealand hip hop. Like it was such a real like awesome community to be a part of, and I'm so grateful that I was a part of that during that time. And so Breaking Rec, man, like if you sort of ask any of like a lot of people say like we're their like their favorite MC's favorite MC, like. And that's like the impact that Breaking Rec had, just because like we're on such a different level. Like we try to do things like completely different. Like we just real, obviously the indie scene in New Zealand, like Breaking Rec was sort of like the, I guess the template for that. Just doing it on your own. But yeah, it was such an awesome time to be a part of New Zealand hip hop, and I think just the lyricism, like everybody like. And Breaking Rec sort of elevated each other. Like I couldn't like, man, I could never like write like a whack verse, terrible verse, and like get away with it. Like even I did a song called "Walking in the Rain" once, and it was like obviously like a love song. And I remember like I had such a like long debate with like Cyphernetic about it. He was just like, man, what is this like love songs, man? Come on, I was like, hey, come on, it's a metaphor for like my love of Breaking Rec. Like, come on. But nah, it was like everybody like elevated each other. It was like you could never come with like anything like less than your best, like, and that's what elevated it. And like, and I have that same mentality, like that approach to like everything in my life now. Like it's, and so one thing I kind of regret, like I never told like Todd, I was on a podcast with him a few years ago, but I never got to tell him like just how much those guys like meant to me and like how much they pushed me. And how much they elevated me as a person. And yeah, like I thought about this a few years ago as well. I was just thinking like, man, like even like just like the ghosts of them, like I don't know if it's like ghosts, but like just like their expectations of me, like I sort of carry that with everything I do. Like if I'm in like an SLT meeting or if I'm like the board meeting, I'm just like, man, what would like Todd say, like, you know, like, what would he say to push me? What would Dom say to push me? Like, what would they do in a situation? And it's like, it's not really like their ghosts haunting me, but it's like their expectations of me to like, just to really like succeed and like come with like everything of my best is like pretty much what drives me. And so like that, I'm really grateful for that, for all those guys like Jared, Cyphernetic, the Red Eye Society boys, Tick and Jay, and obviously Dom and Todd, and obviously Saya and Rizwan as well. Like, just I always want to be better because of them. And so that was like the magical part of like being part of Breck and Rec. It was like everybody wanted everybody to like excel. You know, there was no like, we're not going to settle for like mediocrity. It's like you have to come with your best, otherwise just there's no point doing it, you know. And so I think that was the kind of like legacy of Break and Rec in New Zealand hip hop. It's like, you know, lyrically, like nobody wanted like any smoke, you know. It's like I remember Cyphernetic and PNC, because PNC was on Break and Rec at the time, and he there was a group called Misfits of Science and like Fast Crew at the time, like
yes,
massive like sort of back and forth, but then like Jared and PNC got on like True School BFM, and just like they just destroyed them. I was just like, and like that's the legacy of Break and Rec. It's like I think in sometimes could be like underrated as well. Like I remember watching the New Zealand hip hop documentary like recently that came out, and I was just like, man, nothing on Break and Rec. Okay, that's cool. That's
right.
But, yeah, I don't know. I know there's a new podcast coming out about Aotearoa hip hop, so you know we might feature that. But underrated, but at the same time, I think, you know, like well respected by a lot of people in New Zealand hip hop.
Yeah, I hope there's a feature there somewhere, because it's just
it's just too important, like not to like talk about like the history of Break and Rec and like the legacy as well. So I'm just glad I was part of it.
Hard, bro. When you think about New Zealand hip hop, now or in the past, who is, I guess, a favorite MC of yours when we think about New Zealand hip hop?
And for me, like the GOAT is still Mariko. Like he's the man for me. Always been the man for me. Just like punchlines and like, man, he'd destroy anybody. Like, and I remember just like really like when White Sunday came out, I was like, man, I love this album so much. Just like his bars, man, punchlines was always the best for me. Like, I love hearing the best punchlines, and because that's what a lot of my writing was when I, you know, on the Break and Rec. It was always battle raps, and so you always had to have the best punchlines. And everybody in Break and Rec had like the best punchlines, so you had to like really like focus on your pen game, and like your writing had to be like amazing just to hang. But my record definitely. He's the man for me. He's the GOAT. David Dallas, obviously. We got to. He was part of Break and Rec for a long time, and you know he was the man as well. Just his story as well about, you know, just being a bedroom MC, and then all of a sudden he just like he entered like a few of the rap battles. Cyphernetic sort of, you know, just sort of helped prep him for that, and he became like, you know, what he is today. And he's such the man. Like. Still a big fan of David Dallas. Scribe, obviously, just his impact on New Zealand hip hop, and just the Crusader album, amazing. Who else? Lots of new guys as well. I mean, Tom Scott from Homebrew is awesome, especially because he's from Avondale as well. So anybody from Avondale, I love. And obviously it's. Like mostly the guys like I really looked up to were like in Break and Rec. You know, like Tourette's was like Dominic Hoey was like such a huge influence on me and my writing. Like he sort of encouraged me to write poetry, and he knew like I could be like a good writer, not just poetry but like any kinds of writing, like short story writing, and so he really encouraged me. So I really look up to Dom as well. He's definitely like my favorite like New Zealand poet. And obviously Saya and Rizwan, like, man, those guys, they definitely like, I was like the, because there were three of us, I guess I was the Michelle in the group, you know, like, in terms of like, my writing, I'd be like Michelle. You know, and I mean, they can find out whoever's like Kelly and Beyonce for them, but for me, I was probably the Michelle of the, you know, in terms of my writing. So, yeah.
You're too humble, bro. You're too
Man.
humble. You know, you talked about that notebook. I mean, do you still have it? Did it lost somewhere over the years?
I've still got those books at home somewhere, like in a shoebox somewhere. But you know, just technology. So I just have the notes app, and that's I got so many, like there's verses on the notes app, just sort of fragments of verses as well. There's poems, there's quotes, there's like cool ideas that I've sort of picked up, and that's all in there. So hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, I can flesh them all out one day, and like there's probably like a few songs in there, like a good EP's worth of stuff in there, maybe. Who knows?
Oh, here's another question I forgot to ask. So, are you a singer? I mean, do you? Yeah, you of course come from you. Do you sing? Yeah.
Of course I do.
Singing voice, of course. Oh, foi PC, dedicated, loyal.
Nah, you know, I'm more of a and I can sing in the choir, like, you know, I'm not a solo artist. I can't sing. I can hold a melody, but I can't sing. My best song is probably singing "Moi Moi Pepe for my son." That's when I really shine, and like I sounds exactly the same, like when he does, especially before he goes to sleep. Really, like there's a part in the song where he really like, this is my moment. I'm gonna, like, you know.
Oh man.
I in the choir, yes. You know, Benisuro Petesa of Pese. That's where I really like shined. But now I can't sing. And I can't consider. I think it was somebody else, but like, yeah, that's why. But I've loved words, but I wish I could sing. Like, that's two things I wish I could do, like sing and play guitar. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You crack up, bro. You're a rapper, yeah. So you mentioned earlier you've been teaching. You got into teaching in 2010. How is the COVID situation in the classrooms? Because you're back at school, obviously, you have been for a little while now. I mean, how is that? How are your students coping during COVID?
Good. I think they really struggled with because it was such a long lockdown, and it was hard for them to like remain engaged in like the online lessons. It was hard, like even for the staff as well. Like everyone was kind of struggling, and so just to be back at school was awesome. So we've just had our seniors back, so years 11 to 13, and so yeah, the first day they came back, it was just like, man, no such thing as like social distancing, you know, or like high-fiving and hugging each other, like, man, because they really miss each other, like, you know, they needed that contact, human contact, and so they really missed that about being at school. And so we've been at school for the last maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and so we get our juniors back next week, so years 7 to 10. So we lots of, like, obviously things have changed, you know, there's lots of like protocols to follow, lots of procedures, and we're quite strict about you know, mask wearing and hand sanitizing, and like staggering like the finish times for our boys. And so, you know, one group finishes at 2:30, next group 2:45, just so that when they get on the public bus, because you know, even though we're based in Ponsonby, like our school, majority of our boys come from like out south and out east and out west as well. And so just sort of getting them on the bus down to Britomart so they can catch their trains and stuff is it's tough, because, and then that's one of the things that we're really worried about, because if we're like the kids were local and they all lived around Grey Lynn, it would have been fine, but because they come from all different parts of Auckland, it's hard to, like, you know, try and regulate COVID, you know. So it has been tough, but it's been really good to be back at school, just to have like the face-to-face contact with our students, and because it's really different on a Zoom, and you know, you don't really have the same like impact, I guess. But yeah, it's been good. Like, and we've just been really strict about just our procedures and protocols. Keep everybody safe is the main thing. Safety is paramount.
What's your regular morning routine once you arrive at school?
So I get to school usually around 7:30, 7:45, and it's straight to the office. If I have time, I'll go get a coffee up the road. We've got a cool coffee shop up the road, and our the famous St. Paul's Bakery, Busy Oven Bakery, where they make the famous cream stick and pie. They call that the St. Paul's breakfast. So they get like a pizza roll. They cut it in half. They put a pie in it, and then they put cream on it.
What?
The St. Paul's breakfast.
Okay.
Yeah. If anybody's in Greyland, go to the Busy Oven Bakery and ask for cream stick and pie. So it's usually I get to work and then straight into like emails pretty much. Like if I have time, I'll try and read a book, while I'm kind of waiting. But yeah, it's mostly just straight to work. It's on the emails. Like last year, my role as the DP of pastoral and operations, it was like I had to do relief, and that was like the worst thing, man. Like setting up relief, organizing that was the worst. So last year I had to get in work about 7 o'clock just to like make sure that was all sorted and then send that out to staff. But this year's been a bit more chill, so I haven't had to. I don't have that responsibility this year. So
making moves.
That's the goal, man. Like, I never like wanted to be like. I never saw myself as like going to be like SLT and part of the senior management. But man, it's been cool. Like a lot of our previous principal who just finished, he really like just sort of pushed me. He's like, man, you can do this. Like, and I guess that's what like a lot of us suffer from. We imposter syndrome. We just think like we sort of undervalue like our potential, and we're like, nah, I can't do that. But then, so he really pushed me. He was like, man, you really can do this. Like, you should give this go. Like, and so last year he gave me the opportunity to be like the deputy principal of pastoral care and operations, and like I loved it. And then even this year I got to for a term I was sort of acting DP of curriculum as well. So I've had like a wide range across the school of different roles and different responsibilities. I think that's really like helped me to like, okay, yeah, maybe I can do this. Maybe that's one of my goals. Then maybe be a principal one day. So.
Yeah. Bro, I was going to say, maybe they're getting you ready for the big one.
Definitely like grooming me.
That is so cool,
word, but grooming. But it's cool, and I'm grateful for that as well. Like that they, they can see that potential as well, and I'm grateful for that. So imposter syndrome. I talk to my boys about that all the time. It's like, man, if you want something, just stop like procrastinating, stop like undervaluing like your potential, just go for it.
How important is it for our Pacific Island families to see someone like yourself, especially at a boys' school, in the senior leadership team? I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, it's so important, especially because last year with my role as the pastoral DP of pastoral care and operations, so you're always up on stage. So we start the day every day with assembly, so full school assembly, and our senior leadership team's on stage, and so the DP pastoral care and operations always talks, and so I was up on stage all the time last year speaking, which was new for me. Like I remember the first day of school last year, man, I was like sweating. I was like so nervous. But then, like, as the year gone on, like, obviously at the end of the year, man, I was just like, second nature to me just to get up and speak. But so important, and just being up on stage, just representation matters. Like they can see themselves and like in me up on stage, and they can see like, oh man, that's like one of our own in a position of power, a position of influence in the school, who makes executive decisions around the school. And so that's super, super important for our boys to see that. And it's like I'm one of them as well. It's not like I'm like above them and like I'm still like at their level. Like I can communicate to them at their level as well. And I think it's super important, just having representation and just being in a position of influence, and them seeing that, like that's super important, and that hopefully like flicks a switch for them. Like, you know, like I can do that as well. Like that could be me on stage, like addressing the school, and yes, and so it's for me that's super important.
When you think about your very first day of teaching, and where you are right now as an educator, where has been your biggest area of growth, right? Because they say as teachers we continue to evolve, as the years go. We're always learning, right? We never stop learning. So where has been the biggest areas of growth in terms of your role as an educator?
My when I first started teaching, obviously as the educator yourself, like like the main thing, the first thing you have to really like excel at, or like do your best at, is the building relationships part. If any teacher knows, like if you don't build a relationship, if you have no relationship with the students, learning is not going to happen. So if you have that relationship, which I think is like my strength, like that's just because of who I am, like that's just who I am, like, and that's always been my strength as a teacher, is building relationships. In terms of the growth, I think like just being given the opportunity to have different roles in the school. So I've been like I've been a dean, house leader, or house dean, whatever it's called, a year level dean, junior dean as well. I've also had the opportunity to be like a principal's nominee, which is like the the NZQA liaison officer. So we do all the NZQA stuff, and then obviously being a deputy principal. And so this year, assistant headmaster, but I'm also doing a cross schools leader for our kahui ako, which is our community of learning. And so that's been awesome, like networking with like teachers from other schools within our kahui ako. So we got quite a big community of learning. We got 14 schools, so it's like 4 secondary and 10 primary.
Wow.
And so just being able to like network with those teachers, those across school leaders as well, and see what's happening within our community of learning has been awesome. And I think that's probably the growth, is just like just being given the opportunity to have these different roles, and like leaning more and more towards like the governance of the school, and like just being able to like have a seat at the table, and that's super important, to be in the same room of the people who make the decisions of the school, of the governance of the school. And that's really important to me. Like, so that's probably the growth, is just being given a seat at the table, and like having a voice at the table as well. So that's probably the main growth for me, I think.
Yeah, that's so cool, bro. I'm so proud of you, man. Seriously,
Thank
that
you.
is so dope. If I was a fly on the wall in your classroom, what would I be hearing? What would I be seeing?
So for my media studies class, we start every lesson with a close reading. So that's just kind of like our do now activity. So close reading, I give them an image, or I give them a video or a quote, and they write down their interpretation of that image or that quote or that video. And so 3 things with that is like it gets them thinking, engages their brain, it gets them writing, and it also, because they have to present it to the class afterwards, so it gets them speaking as well. So 3 things are covered with that straight away in the lesson. And that usually creates a lot of discussion. Like we have, it's always like it might be an image about, because in media studies we look at how, obviously the media affects society. And so we look at things like representation in the media. We look at representation of Pasifika people, Māori people in the media. We look at a lot of media theories. Like we looked at, we talk about things like toxic masculinity. We talk about things like Laura Mulvey's male gaze and female gaze in movies. We look at, we look at deconstructing things like boys will be boys, or like man up, be a man. You'll see a lot of students who are engaged, which I really like appreciate. You'll see like my love of like something that I've learned, and then like being able to teach that to them as well. Like, because they say like a good teacher is somebody who can like when you teach somebody, you're showing them how well you've learned something. And so I want them to like leave the lesson like being like, oh man, I just learned something new. Like I want to teach that to somebody else. Like that inspires me to like go out and do my research and like find out about something new, which is like initially what I love about learning as well. Like learning something new and then going out and doing research. Like you'll see confident young men in my class who like I give them a space to be themselves. I always tell them that their opinion is like valid in our class. Like sometimes, for a lot of us, like at home, like our opinions aren't really like validated. And so I tell them, this is our safe space. This is our class. Like what you say here, it's a safe space. Like you can be yourself. Your opinion matters. And so that's pretty much what you'll see if you're a fly on the wall.
Nice. How do you think your students would describe you as a teacher?
They'd say that I have like really terrible dad jokes. But I'm a dad now, so like I'm allowed to like make dad jokes now. Terrible dad jokes. They'd say that like I'm comfortable in who I am, like like unapologetically like myself in terms of like I'm a big Chicago Bulls fan, I'm a big West Tigers fan, even though like West Tigers are like terrible, like we're the worst, like one of the worst NRL teams, but I still support them, and like every time we lose, like I hate coming to like work on Monday because they're like, oh sir, shame your Tigers lost their mind. But like they know who I am, like they know that I'm a proud dad as well. They always ask me how my son's doing, which I always appreciate. They know that I do have like aspirations of like being a principal, and they appreciate it as well. Like they like it. Like I love it when like if I say something in assembly to the school and then they come to me later and they ask, oh, sir, what did you mean by like that? So I love that. And like a lot of our students get a chance to speak in assembly. We give them lots of our seniors opportunities to speak just about whatever topic they want. And like a few times this year, like a lot of the boys have like referenced like what I've said, especially when they talk about like imposter syndrome and that, which is, and just hearing that is like, man, that really like, it's heartwarming because like, they've actually like embraced that and taken that in. But overall they'd say like, I'm just trying to be a funny guy pretty much.
Man, that is so cool.
They always say, "Ooh, the fast-speaking Samoan." Man, honestly, that's the worst like joke I always get, man. That's the biggest mock. They're like, that's funny. I love it.
I liked how you were saying that you networking with other schools, with your school community. With the other schools, are you seeing a lot of Pacifica teachers? Are you networking with other Pacifica teachers in Catholic schools? Obviously you're a Catholic school. Is there a collective of you guys, in terms of supporting and curriculum support, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're trying to build that at the moment. So two of the other cross school leaders, one from Marist College and one from St. Thomas Primary. So they're both Samoan as well, and so we're trying to start a Pacifica Teachers Funnel just within our kahui ako. And then so we're hoping to have that like I think next week just a Zoom one. We're supposed to have it like in person, obviously. So yeah, we're trying to build that. Like I think, like I don't even know if it's out there. Like I need to do some research, but like I'd love to be a part of a Pacifica leadership group, like for Pacifica teachers who aspire to be like DPs and principals. Like it'd be awesome to have like that leadership where we sort of share resources and like offer each other support, and like that'll be awesome to have in terms of like professional development for all of us. So I don't know if there's one like that exists at the moment, but I'd love to be a part of one. So maybe like what we're doing now, if this Pacifica Teachers Funnel, maybe we're like building that now, which I think is super important because a lot of us probably don't get those opportunities unless we're sort of pushed towards them. Again, that imposter syndrome as well. We suffer from that as Pacifica people a lot. But yeah, I think I'd love to be a part of that where we, without, because obviously positions of power in most schools, they're often palangi. And so, and it's hard for us to exist in those spaces, or like they occupy all those spaces, and there's not much room for us as well. So it's about, now that we have a seat at the table, now we can like, okay, like I want to I want to add this person to the table as well, who's Pacifica. And then so hopefully eventually we'll have like a whole table of us, where we're making the decisions, we're like controlling like the governance of the school and making the big choices. So hopefully, I mean, that's the goal. Like I want to be a part of something like that. Because I don't think there's enough Pacifica representation in like senior leadership roles. It's predominantly white. And so in our school, obviously, which is predominantly Pacifica, there's something that's not really like, doesn't match up there. But I mean, that's something that eventually will change, I hope. And that's definitely something I'm working towards.
Man, it's exciting to hear that. Like my nephew is coming to St. Paul's next year. He's super excited. So he
Nice.
is, he just has been going on and on about it ever since, got accepted and stuff. So to hear this kind of stuff, it just makes me feel like, oh, he's going to, it's a good move. He's going to a good place where he's going to be looked after and valued and that kind of stuff. So man, that is super exciting for me, bro.
For sure, like it's a small school, and so like that's the beauty of having a small school, is that we know everybody. Like there's no student who sort of goes missing, who sort of slips through the cracks. Like we really take care of our young men. So he would have been in our. We had our new parents evening like via Zoom. First time doing it via Zoom, which I thought was pretty cool, and it went well. And I just felt bad my Ida speech. And sounded good. So, that's awesome to hear.
My brother Nelly was in it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, he was on the Zoom the other night."
Oh yeah, nice.
I was like, "Oh, I'm interviewing stages." Oh, yes.
That's cool that he's coming. Yeah, we'll definitely look after him. Yeah, we believe in growing great men at St. Paul's. So yeah,
quite.
It's gonna be good.
So I had to ask. I couldn't not talk about this. I couldn't leave this without asking. Man, was it difficult for you to keep a straight face when you were filming with Tofinga, Rugby Mums? Man, I was watching the kids and I thought, man, they probably just want to crack up. Like, tell us about that experience, because it looked like it was fun, bro.
Oh man, it was so much fun. So my media boys. So one of our boys' moms, Benina, she works at Coconut, and so her son's in my media class, and so she just asked if we wanted to be a part of this, skit they're doing called Rugby Mums. And so I took my media boys down. It was like awesome for them to see, like, because obviously we one of our big media studies projects is we make our own films and make our own music videos, and for them to see like how everything works and like, having a shooting schedule and and just seeing like all of that stuff was really important for them. But man, just seeing like, I was kind of starstruck too, like just meeting Tofinga. I was just like, this is the man, like this is Tofinga. And honestly, he's just so funny. Like he's such a nice person. He was really cool, like to talk to. I had a good chat with him that day. But yeah, just filming was, oh man, all of us had to like really control. Like I couldn't even hold it. Like you can see in the film, I'm just like taking it up because he's like. And like he made that, and they were all like off the cuff as well. Like he was really like, I think he had like a certain guideline for what he had to say, but man, that was all of it was impromptu, and he was just so funny, man. Just like the stuff he came out with, there was heaps of takes where we just like all of my boys just started laughing. It was awesome, man. It was such a cool experience. But I was, you don't really get like. I actually really got like starstruck meeting Tofinga. He was like, there's probably like a few people in New Zealand who I meet and get like genuinely starstruck. Like obviously Scribe was one of them.
Yeah.
Tofinga's another one, and I imagine like probably David Tour. If I meet him, I'll be genuinely starstruck.
And Tofinga's like FKSA. I mean, were you proud? Were you like FX?
Man. Oh man, he was the man. He's so cool. Like just like the way he sort of like talked to our boys as well. He's just like really nice. Such a nice person.
Man, how do you look after yourself? Because as teachers, as educators, it's so easy to be like on the go all the time. So in terms of mental health and well-being, self-care, I know people don't like to talk about self-care, and it's like, but it's important, man. Like, how do you take care of yourself when you're not teaching?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you asked me about my skincare routine because I never been asked, but my skincare routine, like my secret is Nivea moisturizer. That's man, I just try and like my partner does a really good job of like she gives me like a lot of space, like because it's hard being a because both of us work so hard, and then obviously we got our son to look after as well, and it's just like a real balancing act. And so she's awesome. Like she gives me space to like go out and play basketball with my friends, or like go to the gym. And for me, it's like I think just keeping active. Like obviously it doesn't look like it, but I do like try and exercise. But yeah, just playing basketball with my friends like once a week. That's just super important for like my mental health. Like for me, that's like how I can like de-stress. I just get to hang out with them and just play basketball and just go get a coffee with them afterwards. And to me, that's like that restores my cup. That sort of fills up my cup again. And so that's super important. And I obviously have to do the same for her as well because she works hard and so it's a nice balancing act what we do. But yeah, I think keeping active. I read a lot as well. Like that's reading with my son is like really like therapeutic for me. Doing my own reading too, like, and it's usually like I'm supposed to be reading like stuff about educational reading stuff. Right. Man, see that gets boring for me, so I like going to like what I want to read. But yeah, reading a lot. I watch a lot of. I'm a big fan of like TV series and movies. Obviously music as well, like just sort of tuning out, zoning out and listening to music that's therapeutic, and that fills up my cup too, just being able to do that. Listening to podcasts, like awesome podcast called ReadswithRosa is pretty good. Yeah, just like doing things that you love and like but also just being able to do that, like having the space to do that too, because I know a lot of people don't have that space. So maybe just, like making the time to do that for yourself, to fill up your cup and, restore your sense of your chakras,
I have to, another one, I have to ask this because I know for a while you got this blog, Fast Speaking Samoan.
It's
and you have this poem, Brown Jesus, right? Tell us about Brown Jesus, because I can't remember if this is the one that I saw you tweet about that you wrote in church or something. I don't know if that's Brown. Oh, sorry. Pulenga Loku. So this is the one, man, because I read it and I was like, yo, okay. I was just getting excited. I was reading through. I was like, yeah, I get where you're coming from. Tell everyone about Brown Jesus.
Brown Jesus. Yeah, I wrote that. I think maybe not all of it during our Pulenga Local, but I remember writing some of it down. I think it was because I've always had like I've always struggled with like the money side of things, and I've always like, man, like, you know, why do we give so much? Like, you know, we got the me, we got the kaulanga, and, you know, obviously the alofa every week. And me and my mum have had so many arguments over the years. But yeah, I think it was because of that, and a lot of it was because, and I read this in you know, Melania Nai's like her recent book that she put out, and she sort of went through the same thing where she got to a certain point in her life. Obviously, she's from PRC Newton, and she went to church every Sunday. But then there was a point where she sort of like started asking questions, like, you know, why is this happening? Like, why do we do this? And I think it was just more of like me just asking why. Like, a lot of things happen. And so searching for brown Jesus was for me like, and also like finding out that, you know, Jesus wasn't white, you know, like Jesus wasn't blue-eyed, you know, with like kind of like wavy hair, and, you know, Jesus looked like us, and he was, and just finding that out and reading, researching a lot more about that, I was like, man, like the Jesus that we've been given is like almost like a gentrified Jesus, you know, like. And so it was a bit of that, and so that sort of sparked it for me when I was writing that. Yeah, and it was just more about like, I guess like my own like questions of myself, like asking like, you know, why do we worship this like a Jesus from like our colonizers, you know, like, and I think it just sort of it was just me like asking a lot of questions. Hopefully nobody took offense to it, but, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna link it in the bio for your episode, because I just think it's something that, you know, I think a lot of our people probably haven't read it, probably haven't even come across your blog. And I know it's, you know, obviously it's been a while since you've posted stuff on there, but I would love to see you, I guess just because it can show growth, I guess. You know, I'd love to see you perhaps start a new blog or continue. Are there any plans for that, bro? Are there any plans? Because I know you've mentioned, you know, on your notepad, on your notes on your phone, you got verses here and there, some poetry. I know you said in your bio on your blog, you don't know if you're a poet. I think you're a poet. I think you are many things. You know, I think you're an amazing writer, and I just feel like that needs to be shared. Like, the few things you have on there, bro, just bring back the blog. That's the question. Are you bringing back the blog?
See, I'm writing it down right now. Bring back the blog.
I mean, on top of, I mean, you know, like, not having go at you, just on top of, I mean, I know you got so many things going on, but man, I would love to just see that creative stuff like back in there. I feel like you have so much to share with our people, just with anyone really. I feel like when that stuff can resonate with so many, so I would love to, you know.
Thank you. It's, I don't know. I did it, and I kind of just like forgot about it. It's just like I was really into it at the time.
Twitter happened, right?
And then I just got like distracted, and Twitter happened. I just got distracted, but yeah, I might have to revisit it and like actually work on it properly. But I mean, do people still read blogs these days? I don't know. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. Still read blogs.
I'm gonna link that and just what you have on there. I think people are gonna I don't know, it just provides insight, and I feel like it will almost show the growth of you as a young man, becoming like I would love for you to let me stop. I would love for you to start writing on there again.
Yeah, I a lot of it was like, you know, it was kind of like, it was satire, like, you know, I was being like satirical with it. Just, you know, like the give me all your money and you'll be like living on nothing but, you know, you know, at least your Fefe and Faleku will have the, you know,
you know.
That's not a shot at my friend Papaia. I love Papaia. Hello, Papaia.
Just I want to talk about reading as we kind of get to the end of the podcast. Thank you for your patience, bro. I appreciate it. I want to ask just real quick. Was there ever a time when you wanted to just leave Efakasa? Like thinking about Brown Jesus, thinking about questions, looking for answers. Was there ever a time where you, because the reason why I ask is because we always hear about this exodus of youth leaving the church to go to more charismatic worship. Did you ever go through that phase where you were kind of like, oh, I or were you kind of like grounded and
I think carefully about my answer. Yeah, but man, like those like for me, those youth churches like don't do it for me. Like I like my relationship with God, like exactly how I am as a person, like just a bit quiet and reserved and like not loud. Like that's not. I don't like worshiping like that. Like that's not for me. So those churches definitely didn't fit for me. I remember going to one in like high school. I think it was BC. It was at Meg's. I went with my friend, and I was just like, man, this is like too much for me. It's like way too much. It's like really like overwhelming, like sensory overload just going to those kinds of churches. So it wasn't for me. Efakasa, like I love with all my heart. Like I've learned so much from Efakasa, like growing up in Sunday school. And I think Manu talked about this as well in her episode. Just like learning the anganuu, learning all of that. And Manu talked about it as well. But I remember going to primary school, and all the teachers were like, "Man, like how can you do double writing? Like you're only like, man, I learned how to do double writing at Sunday school. Like
Sunday school.
I learned how to double write at Sunday school, and exactly what Manu said about like diction and grammar. That's exactly what was it like. My parents did the same thing. That's how I learned how to like. And in terms of like reading and speaking publicly, like that was from my parents, like, just coaching me on how to speak publicly. Like when I do my koloko.
Yeah.
Like read it, like, go slow and like make sure everybody hears the words. And so like I carry that with like, when I speak at school, like I still think back to like mom and dad coaching me how to like speak publicly. And so that's exactly like those kinds of things, like I'll always cherish. But obviously like I have questions, like everybody else, like I have, I'm critical because I want it to be good. Like one of the things probably, I always feel like my mom would make such like an awesome whewhiao because man, she knows the Bible so much. The way she speaks, the way, when we do our komawhai, like, man, she really like studies it, and she's like, oh yeah, and she calls me up, like even if it's like late at night, she's like, oh, can you translate this part like in Samoan, and what does it mean in English? And so I remember doing that, but like the highest like a woman can elevate in the Efakasa churches to become a whalekua. Which is a shame because I feel like my mom would be like an awesome whewhiao. And so there's that like kind of patriarchy in Efakasa, which I think should be reviewed. Like, if the highest a woman can be in the Efakasa church is a whalekua, it's kind of, it's definitely patriarchy, and like those systems probably need to be reviewed and probably changed, I think, just to give, so there's a bit of equality there. That's probably one of the main things my critiques of, but yeah, there's always stuff I'll cherish. Like, I was able to do the launga for our, our pulenga loku at one time. And it was, man, such a huge like honor for me, because I got to do the launga, which was cool, like in front of our whole pulenga, and that was like one of my favorite days. Obviously so nervous, but then just getting up there and like Lucky just like come and talk to me after. He's like, man, have you thought about becoming a whewhiao? I was like, man, you should talk to my mom because she still wants me to be a whewhiao. Yeah. Man, my mom still like hassles me. She's like,
that's my next question. That's actually leading to that question. Is Malua in the future? I mean, you know.
Man. Man, I've had this discussion with my mom because if I wanted me to go to Malua, like mom and dad still want me to go to Malua. I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's for me. Like, I told mom, like, man, I'm doing God's work. Like, you know, Jesus was a teacher as well. Like, he's teaching. Like, that's me doing God's work. I don't know, man. Tax-free money would be pretty cool.
Man, yeah, I didn't know. I always thought you might go to Malua and stuff, but I love how
you didn't have to really be like the bishop, you know, like
for real. Then it can be that part of your name. Hard out, bro. I like how you're talking about, you know, like what Manu mentioned as well, because I know, like, even for us growing up, like, you know, we spoke Samoan in the home. English was for school, Samoan was at home, and then of course, you know, a lot of that was through church, you know, like that was the connection. So, you know, FX hard.
Man, like, and it's super important. Like they'll always be a part of me. And just growing up, because you know, we started at Greyland. I grew up in Greyland Church, and we left in '99. You know, we went to Point Shepherd Whakasā, which eventually became Pensuro Petesa, Whapaia, and then just learning so much from Whapaia in terms of like our anganui. He's so well versed in that, and just learning from him and all like the other people. And then obviously now we're back at Greyland. Well, you know, my parents are Jerry and them. I'm kind of like a part-timer at the moment. But it's good to be back. Like you know, that sort of like that circle of life is sort of, you know, it's come sort of full circle, just going back to Greyland, which is awesome.
That's cool, bro. Favorite book so far this year?
Ooh, geez, I have to really like. Okay, I have to have a think. Favorite book so far, probably. I'm having a look at like my list of books that I've read so far. I really like the. There's a New Zealand author, Becky Manawatu, and she wrote a book called Awe.
I want to read that. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, so man, it's like Once We're Warriors, but I guess like told a bit better, like and just a bit more vivid, and man, just like the harsh realities of like, you know, some of our like marginalized communities in New Zealand. But it's such an amazing book, and you know, and that's her first book apparently, her first novel, and such a good book. I definitely recommend that. I read a book called Fight Like a Girl by Clementine Ford. Super important as well. Like my partner got me for Christmas a couple of years ago. She got me a book called Boys Will Be Boys by Clementine Ford, and such a powerful book. Like that's where I really like. It sort of changed my perspective on life, on being a man. Taught me about toxic masculinity, like what that means. Taught me about patriarchy and what that means, and what I can do, like as a man, as a male, to like try and I guess deconstruct that, and also like see like in terms of like my privilege as a man and how that operates in society, and like what I can do to like empower others, especially women, you know. And Boys Will Be Boys, she has this awesome letter to her son, and I was like, because I read it at the same time that, you know, we were expecting as well, and so it was like such a beautiful letter, and that sort of really made me look at like what kind of dad I want to be, and so powerful. So yeah, this was I think her first book that she wrote, Fight Like a Girl, and it was about the same sort of stuff, like just the stuff that women go through. It was just like, man, as men, as males, like the privilege we have and like the entitlement we have, just learning what that is and what that means. Like I definitely had to like unlearn a lot of things of like my own like I guess social conditioning, unlearn a lot of it, and then I guess relearn it now with like a new lens. So yeah, Fight Like a Girl. One of my favorites probably Shea Serrano. I just finished reading a book called Movies and Other Things. Man, such a good book. Like Shea Serrano he runs a podcast called No Skips, and they like just break down like hip hop, their favorite hip hop albums. And he's so funny, and because he used to be a teacher as well, which makes it even cooler. And so just hearing his and reading his book, and like it's exactly how he is on the podcast, and I love it. So I just purchased his recent book, which is called Hip Hop and Other Things. So
yeah, I got the audio book for that, so I'm going to listen to it.
I think he does the audio for it.
Yeah, so I got it because I saw you post about the movies one. And I was like, who was this Shea Serrano? And then I looked up, followed him, and I was like, okay, this is. I was like, I'm gonna get the audio book.
And it's because he kind of like loves everything that I love, like NBA. He loves like movies, because he's awesome. And yeah, so that I really love that Movies and Other Things book, just because like just talked about a lot of the movies that I love growing up as well. So yeah, that's definitely one. And this one, obviously, we talked about it before, but the Thomas Samoa one, really powerful book. I think it's so important. I think it's something that I want to get our staff to read because in terms of being like culturally responsive, and having like a culturally sustaining practice as a teacher, like I think it's such an important resource to have. And how to like educate and teach and interact with like young Pasifika men, because there's so much like under the surface that a lot of Palangi teachers might not understand. Lots of like little nuances that about our cultures that they won't understand. So I think that's a really important book to read. So I'm definitely going to be recommending it to our staff. Sorry, I'm going on.
Any other books that you want to recommend while you're at it?
I really geek out about books. I read a cool one called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a bit airy-fairy, but like, man, super important. Like, in a relationship, if you don't understand your partner's love languages, and you'll see where like the problems are. And so being able to like identify like what your partner's love languages is, like, man, game changer.
You got it down to a T now. You're all good.
I think so. Learning, still learning.
Crack up. Any other books that you think must read right now?
Man. At the moment, I'm reading a book called White Fragility by Robin D'Angelo. Really good book so far. I've only read the first 2 chapters, but just like, man, the way she has this really cool analogy where she talks about like, it's like a birdcage analogy where she talks about the birdcage being like a metaphor for like racism and oppression. If you like look really close at the bars and your face is right up against the bars, you'll think like, oh, like the bird's free. Like, why doesn't the bird just fly away? If you step back like a little bit and you can see like 2 of the bars, you think like, oh, why doesn't the bird just sort of fly around the bars and leave? But if you step like right back, you can see that it's like a interconnected thing, like all the bars of the prison, and you can see that the bird is actually trapped. And that's like I thought that was such a cool like analogy about racism and oppression, that a lot of like, obviously it's called white fragility, so it's about white people. A lot of white people don't understand that they have to step back and see like how interconnected and how like systemic like racism and oppression is in the world. And so that book's been really cool, like learning about that. Yeah, so that's another one, White Fragility by Robin D'Angelo.
Recommend that to some teachers at school as well. Yeah. Like it's it's cool, man. I want to, one last thing before we wrap this up. Would you ever consider writing a book or putting together a poetry anthology of your work. Is that, do you see that happening? Is that something you'd want to do?
For sure. I definitely want to do that. I recently, one of our HOD for English, one of her good friends is my old principal from primary, and he's a poet, and he recently, Tim Heath is his name, and he recently released like another one of his poetry books. And man, just seeing like if he can do it, like I definitely want to do it. And obviously, my friend Dom Tourette's is like he's released a few like books of his poetry. He released a novel called Iceland, which I really love, and like just seeing them do it, I'm like, man, I definitely want to do it. But I know like it takes, I'd have to like sacrifice a lot of time and like just be in like a certain space to write. Like for me, like I love writing poetry, but I have to be in a certain space. Like I have to really, really like shut everything out and like just focus. And like obviously now, like it's sort of hard to like have just like focus on one thing because there's so much going on. But I definitely love to like one day, release like a book of my poetry. I think it'd be so cool. Like some cool ideas there. Yes, definitely is the answer to the question. Yes.
Excellent. Sure. I'm so there for that, bro. Whenever that happens, whether it's a long-term project, bro, do it.
I'll be there, and I'll just make sure you like remember us when you become like when ReadswithRosa really like blows up.
Stop it!
Hey. Like, number one podcaster in the Pacific.
Thinking future aspirations. 5 years. Where do you see yourself, if not at Malua? Where do you see yourself? Early retirement. What future aspirations for you?
Definitely. Like I think I said before, like I never really wanted to be like in senior leadership positions. But my partner, she really like pushed me. She said like, just think of how important it is for like your boys to see you, like young brown men seeing you in a position of influence, position of power, and just how important that is for them. So like, being a principal and being able to like affect change in a school, like that's definitely a goal for me. So I do have aspirations to be a principal. I'm not sure just yet because like I really want to. I've seen like principals, and a lot of them have like older children, so they're a lot older, and so they, for me, like my son's only 2, so I really want to just like spend time with them. So I'm happy where I'm at now. Obviously, I do have aspirations to be a principal later on, and again, like my son seeing me be a principal as well would be amazing, just to like, and so. Having that influence on my son, and so my son can sort of see like, oh man, like my dad's a principal, like man, I can aspire to be like whatever I want as well, like be in a position to affect change. So definitely, I want to be a principal. I don't know if it's the 5-year plan. It might be a bit later. So 5 years, I'll be 41, which is still quite young to be a principal, I think. What else do I want to do? I want to. Eventually like release a book of poetry or a novel. I don't know if maybe short stories. People don't get bored. I don't know if anybody will read it like a full novel. Book of poetry. After listening to Lea Favor and also Lani and Livingston's one, I've been talking about this a lot with my cousins, just getting a better as well. So that's definitely like on the bucket list for me, and it's definitely one of the goals. Like, so I was thinking, man, maybe for my 40th or something, and I was thinking about it as well. And I think Livingston said it in his interview when he said like, when you get the better, it's like the amakanga or the. When I heard that, I was like, you're the man, bro. Like, the scene in like. Will Smith in Pursuit of Happiness, where he does the so clap, after he gets the job. that's exactly how I felt when he said that. So I was like, yeah, man, so maybe one day it's definitely a goal for me. So, oh yeah, congrats on that too, because you got your malu, man, and that's,
Thank you.
man, what a journey.
Yeah, just what a journey,
Yeah,
and to be able to, do it with my brother. There are no words, just a lot of emotion.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And like, yeah, they said so much, like they dropped so many gems, like in that interview as well, just like about that journey and just how important it was. But yeah, when he said that, I was just like, it's like beginning of your service. I was like, yeah, that's definitely it. Like, obviously, because I still haven't been to Samoa, so I feel like that's like a missing link for me. And once I get there, I know that like, man, I know that my life will be like complete almost because, we planned to go last year. I planned to take my son last year in July, but then obviously COVID hit, so we weren't able to go. But that's probably one of my goals as well. Like, I want to go home and see like, where my mom grew up and where my dad grew up. I want to see like our people and our land. And yeah, I always said like when I go to Samoa, I want to like, I saw it in the movie once, they kiss the ground when they get off the plane. I saw it in the movie once, I'm like, man, I want to do that. So yeah, that's probably one of my goals, just to take my son there as well. And like, my partner's mum says this all the time when she comes to like back to Greenland. She said like, my bones feel at peace, and so I feel like that's going to happen for me when I eventually get to go to Samoa. Like, my bones, because they know they belong there. This is where I'm from. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome moment, and being able to take my son there too will be cool. Even better if I get to go there and get my better too. Oh
yeah, man, bro, that's super exciting to hear. These future aspirations, these dreams that you have, these goals. Alo your favor. That's all I gotta say.
yeah, man.
And
man, and you saw like how much my son loves, like, shout out to Lani. My son loves Toi Manu. Like, honestly, that's his favorite song. Like, every time he's like, Dad, Toi Manu, Toi Manu. And he just starts singing it. And like, when he's like trying to go sleep, because we got the monitor.
Yeah.
And you just hear him like singing the song. He loves it, man. He
Oh,
loves it.
Man. Priceless moments, bro.
Yeah, shout out to Lani for that.
Man, so we're at the time of the show where I basically hand it over to you to drop some more gems, I guess drop some words of encouragement, words of wisdom, motivation, just for any of our listeners and viewers who perhaps wanting to go after a goal, perhaps start the next chapter in their lives. So I'll give you a moment just to think about that. But before we go there, I Sam, bro, man, I can't believe like years later, I finally got to sit down with you and do this. It means so much to me that you were like open to coming on here for this talanoa and just, sharing a bit of your journey. I'm a huge fan. I didn't even care if it was the 2000s, late 99. I don't care, man. We love Usual Suspects, Rick and Rick, and just the history there, and then just to see you, we would see each other at our church stuff, and then just to see the growth, bro, as an educator, that is super inspirational. It's been awesome just to hear, the steps, the moves that you're making, just in the field of education, and just to inspire and motivate our young, the young boys, young men at your school, bro. That's super special. I want to wish you all the best, as you wrap up the school year. Just keep doing you, keep being that amazing role model for our young Pacifica children and men. Bro, FX,
Right.
That's what's up, bro. So just, alofaku, much love to your family, your mom. I have memories every time I see her at Pulenga stuff. She'll be like, just spark up a combo. She's always friendly, always smiling, always got something, positive to say. And you know, I remember that stuff. Shout out to Kerry and her family. So, and also to your little family, you know, much love. Let me stop. I could go on forever. But yeah, much love, bro. Seriously, keep grinding, keep going hard for our kids. You're the man, bro. Seriously, amazing role model. So, you know, I'll just hand it over to you now just to wrap up the show with some encouragement. Take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, man. First of all, thank you, Rosa, for having me on. Man, I couldn't say no when you asked me. I was like, of course, like, this is like, of course, for sure. I want to be a part of history. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of history? This is ReadswithRosa, man. Come on. How can I say no to that? But yeah, thank you for having me on, Rosa. I really appreciate it. Thank you for always being like yourself. Like, it's always nice to like, when we used to go to this pooling, I looked to see like, a smiling face and, always welcoming, always like so friendly and kind. So thank you, Rosa, for everything. Thank you to your family as well. Like, again, shout out to Lani, the man. Yeah, what I want to say, it's really important to find your purpose. Like, only for me, like maybe only a few years ago, like it really became like clear what my purpose was, which is to, educate and like help like Pasifika people, especially young Pasifika people. They come into our school, they're really malleable in their formative years, and so just helping them find their identity, giving them a purpose. That's become my purpose, like to really help them and get them to strive for like, what we call like Pasifika excellence, like so they can be, I guess, awesome contributors in society. They become great men who look after their families, who are well-read, who are confident in themselves, unapologetically themselves, and who keep striving for Pasifika excellence. So I think I really discovered like my purpose in the last few years, and it might not always come like immediately for some people, but for me, that's like I've really like found my purpose. And like I guess the other thing I want to say is probably what I say to my boys all the time is just keep changing the narrative. Mm-hmm. You are the author of your story. Like, don't let anybody else tell your story. Like, this is your story. Be accountable, have ownership of your story, and just keep changing the narrative. Like, what the narratives of our people is. They always think that, we always sort of underappreciated in society, I guess. And so just keep changing that narrative. Like, you are the author of your story. So when you look back, in a few years' time, when you look back, how much control have you had over your story? How much ownership do you have of your story? So just, that's probably the main thing. And I always share that with my boys as well. Like, you're the author. Like, this is your story. Like, only you can tell your story. So don't give anybody like the opportunity to like rewrite your story or like, add their own chapter to your story. Like, this is your life, your story. Change the narrative. You decide. You're the captain of your ship. You're the the conductor of your destiny. So just keep changing the narrative. Be the author of your story, and you have creative control over your story. So just keep writing and make sure it's a story that you're going to be proud of at the end.